In this lesson, we will get back to the chair scene and try to light the scene using a combination of an area light and an HDRI environment. Hey folks, welcome to Mograph Plus. This video is a free sample from our course, The Ultimate Introduction to Octane for Cinema 4D. It's a massive 20-hour long course in which we explore all the aspects of Octane for Cinema 4D thoroughly. Make sure to check it out, the link is in the description. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified about our latest videos. The scene uses ACES for color management. The rest of the settings are at the default. Let's open up the live viewer, lock the resolution, and start a render. Right now we are using the default direct lighting kernel. So let's open up the Octane settings window, change the kernel to path tracing. Now we get both direct and indirect lighting. The max samples is set to 16,000 by default, which is a lot, and will take Octane a long time to render the scene. Let's set it to 1,000 to get started. This will give us a good balance between quality and render time. Next, let's go to the Settings tab of the Octane settings window and come over to the Environment tab and change the default environment color from white to black. Now we have no light source in the scene. So we can close the Octane settings window. Next, I like to add an area light as my key light, and I will place it to the left of the chair. So let's go to the Objects menu, and from the Lights, add an area light. The light was created in front of the camera. Here I need to be able to move around the scene and position the light the way I want, but I want Octane to render from the current camera. And to do that, simply click on this camera icon at the top right corner of the live viewer to disable update check for camera. Now if I get out of the camera, Octane will continue to render from the camera. Let's just move the light up a bit. Rotate it 90 degrees on Y and place it to the left side of the chair. To place the light a bit more accurately, I have created this null and renamed it to Light Placement Helper. So let's put the light under the null and zero out its transformation. Now the light is placed exactly where I want. Next, we can select the Octane light tag, disable surface brightness, so changing the size of the light wouldn't affect its intensity, and lower the power to around 20 watts. Next, I like the shadows to be a bit sharper, and to achieve that, we can simply lower the size of the light. So select the light itself, and under the details, change the size from 200 by 200 centimeters to maybe 150 by 150 centimeters. You notice how the way we place the light to the very side of the chair allows us to see this nice shadow fall off on the chair and helps us define the shape of the subject for the viewer. This is a fairly dramatic lighting and we can leave it as is, but let's make it softer and treat it more like a product photography shot. And to do that, I like to add an overall fill light to make the shadows a bit brighter and lower the contrast of the composition. And to do that, let's use an HDRI environment. So let's add one to the scene from the object menu of the live viewer. Select the environment tag. And now we can load an HDRI. In the text folder, go to the HDRIs folder and load this bathroom 4K HDRI image and change the color space to non-color data. We can get back to the camera as well and enable check camera update. Now you notice how this HDRI adds a lot of realism to the lighting, but as we are aiming for a product shot, I like to keep the colors as neutral as possible. This current angle of the HDRI, even though it is nice, but adds too much warmth to the shot. And to see the HDRI, we can temporarily hide the wall geometry. Now we can rotate the HDRI to see it in the background. Cool. Let me unhide the wall. Now we can rotate it until we get something nice and neutral. I would say at around 0.35, 0.36, we have a good angle that fills a lot of those dark shadows. Now we can lower the power to around 0.4. It looks nice. Maybe we can have two renders, one with the HDRI environment at its default and all the warmth that it adds, and this one which is more neutral. Now I can turn the HDRI on and off so you can see the difference that it makes. Let me just have that more warm and real life render with the HDRI being at its default stage as well. I'm gonna rename this HDRI environment to Octane Sky 01 underscore neutral. Create a copy of the HDRI environment, rename it to Octane Sky 02 underscore warm. Select the environment tag for this one, set the power to 1 and zero out the rotation. Now we get this nice warm render as well. Now let's go for the final render. I will put the first HDRI environment on top so it will be used for the render for now. Next, we need to find a proper max samples value so we can have a clean final render. If I open up the Octane settings window, right now the max samples is set to 1000. Let's start a render from scratch to see what we get with 1000 samples. So the render took around 40 seconds, and if I zoom in, you notice the render is quite noisy. Let's try 2000 samples and see what it will give us. You notice the render continues from the 1000 samples until it reaches 2000 samples per pixel. So it took another 30-40 seconds to reach that 2000 samples. It's not bad, but still a bit too much noise. Let's double the max samples again and try 4000 max samples. Again, the render will continue from 2000 samples until reaching 4000 samples. So this is cleaner, but does it worth doubling the render time? Probably not, as I like to also double the resolution of the render, and with 4000 samples it will probably take around 10 minutes. If it was for an actual job, we would use at least 4000 samples, but 2000 sample would be enough for the scene. We can also add denoising as well to get it to be absolutely perfect. For now, let me close the live viewer. For denoising, select the Octane camera tag, and from the camera imager, enable spectral AI denoiser. Make sure denoise on completion is enabled. Now we can increase the final resolution of the render. So let's set the resolution to 1333 by 2000. Now we can open up the live viewer and start a final render. The render with the current max samples and resolution will take around 6 minutes. When saving the image out, make sure you are actually in the denoised pass if you want to save out the denoised pass. If you save the image out while in the main pass, the noisy main pass will be saved out. I've already done that and saved out the renders like in the previous video. So let me show you the final renders for both the HDRI environments. And here they are. For the second render, I just added slight color correction in post. Great. So in this video, we'll learn how to use area lights and HDRI environments to light and render a scene. See you in the next one. Make sure to visit our website mographplus.com and check out our premium CGI and rendering courses for Cinema 4D, 3ds Max, Maya, Arnold, Octane, Corona, V-Ray, Redshift, and much more. See you in the next one.